I am on a quest to play every Nintendo 64 game ever. Today, bring your quarters because we're revisiting the 80s with Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1. Since we're taking a gander at some 80s arcade classics, I wanted to get into the mood. So I decided to watch the movie that best explains the golden age of gaming better than any other film. And I think you all know what movie I'm talking about. Pixels, the movie where Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Olaf from Frozen, and Tyrion Lannister all defend the world from murderous video game aliens. The perfect 80s movie. Mark.
Yes.
Question.
I got an answer for you.
Will you watch Pixels with me? We can sit down, watch some Pixels.
Okay, we watch Pixels.
That was the best movie I've ever seen.
Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1 of 1 contains 6 action-packed classics that any generation can appreciate, regardless of what Adam Sandler says in Pixels.
There's no rhyme or reason to this game. Where are the patterns? He just attacks out of left field.
Shut up.
Patterns? Is that why
Shut
you're
the
so
fuck
good
up.
at
This volume has Defender, Robotron, Tapper, Joust, Spy Hunter, and Cinestar. The cartridge also contains an arcade trivia game about the development of these titles. Before playing any of the games, I dove into it with zero knowledge.
When a player reaches 990,000 points on Defender, what happens?
What? I don't know. I'll try this again after I play more. If you know my channel at all, you probably know that my motto is that I play each Nintendo 64 game to completion. So how the hickety heck will I achieve that here, since arcade games don't ever really end? Well, I decided to play each game for about an hour, so I put in roughly 6 hours into the whole game, and that was more than enough. My review scoring had to adapt as well, because these games originally released in the 80s. So I decided to do 3 different scores. One for the 80s, one for the 90s, the N64 version, and one for today. So bust out your whiteboard, because we're gonna do some math. Defender. First up in the collection is Defender. This is by far the most popular game of them all. It's so popular that it showed up multiple times in the movie Pixels. Unfortunately, it didn't get the same spotlight as other juggernauts like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, but maybe in the sequel. In Defender, you're a small ship shooting alien ships that are attempting to abduct people into their ships, so you just save the people, get points, it's that simple. But holy heck, it's difficult. I know that 99% of arcade games are supposed to be the Dark Souls of video games to make money, but I struggled with Defender a lot. And it's also the one I put the most time into. So yeah, Midway's plan to make this game similar to crack cocaine worked like a charm on me. And despite all that, I didn't really enjoy my time with this game. For the 80s, a 7.8. But I can understand why it was a huge hit in the 80s. For the N64 collection, a 4.3. The issue on the N64 is that you're forced to use the D-pad, which is incredibly clunky and there are frequent slowdowns. But props to them for actually utilizing the D-pad. Not many games do that. And for today, 2.1. Why would anyone play this today? If this game actually had music, maybe you'd get a higher score. I'm just saying, I know there were limitations back in the day, but come on, throw something in here! Robotron. The easiest way to describe Robotron to someone today is, it's like being inside the Undertale combat box, while also tripping on a lot of acid. The player runs around and shoots robots and saves civilians. It's just like Terminator before Terminator. But forget Terminator, that movie's garbage! In the final act of Pixels, during the alien invasion which was triggered by Billy Mitchell cheating in the Pac-Man trial, Robotron enemies appear! It's so cool! How did they not get sued by Billy Mitchell for this clear impersonation? I had never heard of this game before playing it. Robotron is fun, but it's really, really difficult. I was far less driven to get further in this game because of the difficulty. It's nuts! I only got to the 6th or 7th or maybe the 11th level before I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. Also, my eyes were hurting a little bit. Maybe it's because this game drives people to epileptic seizures? The controls are my favorite part of Robotron. It plays better than any other game in this collection. Each direction of shooting is mapped to the C buttons. It feels nice and it fits perfectly. Finally, good controls in an N64 game! For the 80s, 8.7. I understand why this game was such a big hit in the arcades. It's really fun and it's challenging. 6.1 for the N64 version. And on the N64, I believe this game retained most of its charm through the 90s. It controlled well and had great replay value. And for today, I'd give it 3.9. As for today, yeah, it isn't the best, but for a retro game, it's pretty good. It doesn't compare to what we have in terms of control, design, and presentation. Also, I'm pretty sure this game would be illegal because of the flashing colors, but it's still good. Speaking of illegal, do you like underage drinking? Tapper. Well, good thing there's no underage drinking here. Tapper is without question my favorite game in this collection. This game is all about a bartender sliding drinks down counters and getting people smashed. Technically it's not alcohol, I'm pretty sure it's root beer, but you know, it's close enough. There's this cool little side game so the entire game isn't just the same gameplay over and over and over again like all the other arcade games. It's like, what if Valhalla wasn't a visual novel? It's like, what if Cheers was a video game? It's like, what if Friends was actually good? I don't know how that relates, but we can tie it in somewhere. This game was such a palate cleanser for me because it wasn't a bullet hell. It controlled well, and the goal wasn't cryptic. It's the most well-rounded game on the cartridge, and this is the one I'd recommend it to anyone the most. There is definite bias towards it simply because it's so unique in this arcade package, but it is genuine fun. Obviously, Adam Sandler doesn't agree with me because Tapper didn't show up in the hit movie Pixels at all. They implied Q*bert had sex with a human, but they couldn't put in Tapper? Blasphemy! For the 80s, while I don't know every arcade game, I feel Tapper may have been refreshing at the time because it wasn't like every other arcade game. Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't alive. For the N64 era, 6.5. It's definitely the standout game in this collection, simply because it's not like the others. And for today, a 4.1. There is still one thing about Tapper that's sad. It's clunky. And the clunk is real. And that brings it down for me. But I still like it. What's clunkier than Tapper, though? Joust! Oh man, Joust. The game where you ride an ostrich. Everyone loves Joust. The one where you jump around aimlessly. Why does everyone love Joust? Every person I've talked to enjoys and loves Joust. Except for that one person in my mirror. He doesn't like Joust. So Mr. Guy in the mirror, why don't you like Joust? Well, thanks for asking. I think the hitboxes are just inaccurate, the level design is wonky, the ice physics are annoying, and it's just really annoying to play. So say you were an arcader back in the 80s, what kind of review score would you give it back then? Well, I would probably give it like a 5.2 or something. I'm sure it was the norm back then because all the controls were wonky and clunky and slippery, but it still doesn't seem like a game I would have a lot of fun with personally. For the N64 version, I'll give it 3.8 because it still just is not good. It does not control well. It is slippery. It is not fun. As for a score today, I'll give it a generous 2.3. Why do people still play this game today? Why do people like this game? I don't get it. Did you know Joust was in Pixels? The hit movie Pixels? Aw, shit. I might have to reconsider my score now. Spy Hunter! Okay, this is my least favorite one. You drive in a straight line and try to blow up enemy cars. That's it. I still don't really get it. Why? I watched gameplay of someone who actually knew what they were doing, and then I tried to emulate it and I didn't know what I was doing still. I don't like this one whatsoever. Am I not intelligent enough for this? I spent the least amount of time on this one. I'm sorry to the Spy Hunter community, but I just do not enjoy it. It's boring. It's monotonous. Why does it take 30 minutes to respawn? I could have made a sandwich in that time! For the 80s, 4.6. Kind of generous. I don't know, did people like this one? It wasn't in pixels, so I'm gonna say no. For the N64, a 2.7. This is the worst one. I have nothing else to say. As for today, 1.3. Ugh. Yikes. I guess I had fun for a second or two. Cinestar. Another bullet hell game. Yahoo. This is probably the least well-controlling bullet hell game, but it's the one I personally enjoyed the most. In fact, I got the high score on it too. In Cinestar, you're a ship that's gathering materials to build bombs to use on the Cinestar, who is basically an unstoppable force that will kill you in one hit. The catch is, the Cinestar isn't complete when you begin. Their minions will gather the same materials that you need to make bombs to create Cinestar. This game is the most intense and anxiety-inducing in the package, and that's why I like it in my video games. It kind of reminds me of Resident Evil 2, where you spend the whole game running from Mr. X, except you can actually kill Cinestar, so that's nice. I honestly had a blast with this. The controls are very wonky, a lot more clunky than the others. It has weird ice physics, and sometimes it's just hard to move just a few centimeters. But besides that, it's fine. I'm actually sad this wasn't represented in pixels anywhere. It would have really fit the movie. An alien menace attacking the player. That's literally the plot of Pixels. Instead, we got a forced romance between an electrician and a politician. For the 80s, 8.1. This is one of the more complicated arcade games. That's what I like about it. It's definitely one I would be playing all the time back in the 80s. For the N64 era, 6.1. The game held up pretty well in the late 90s. The concept is still great. The controls are not great. And for today, Cinestar gets a 4 out of 10. I can't recommend this game to anyone today because of the controls. If you want this anxiety experience, just play Resident Evil 2, or Pikmin, or just go outside. And that's all the games. Time to test my arcade knowledge.
The car in Spy Hunter, the G6155 CIA prototype interceptor, was modeled after what real car?
How is anyone supposed to know this? Don't take me to trivia night, everyone. I'm not good at it. So that's Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1. Now let's go to my super secret math website to input these scores so we can get a final result. Not that the 80s score actually matters and it was just there for fun. It's 7.1. It's a 6.1 for the N64, and for the modern score, a 3.5. Yes, so don't buy this. Just get them on your phone.
Hello, you can download Galaga on your phone for $1.99.
Oh yeah, and I'd give Pixels a 4 out of 10, which is somehow rated higher than this game.